Most men go through their entire lives believing that women communicate interest through loud, obvious signs, yet female psychology works in quiet layers, subtle emotional openings, soft-coded phrases, and tiny windows of opportunity. And this is where our story begins with a man named Adrian, who thought he understood relationships until he met Liana, a woman who expressed her feelings through slow-building trust, body language, and emotional cues he didn't yet know how to read. They met during a late evening class where Adrian's calm, steady presence caught her attention. And from the very first conversation, she used one of the most powerful coded phrases women rely on: "You make it easy to talk," a line that, on the surface, seems casual, but in reality marks the first psychological checkpoint of attraction. The moment when a woman signals emotional openness, and as the weeks passed, Liana deepened her approach. Eye contact held a second longer than necessary. Playful teasing mixed with softness, small touches disguised as accidental, and long pauses after compliments, all designed to test whether Adrian saw the deeper meaning behind her words. She would say things like, "I don't know why, but I feel comfortable with you, you understand me," or "Not everyone makes me feel relaxed." And these phrases were her way of offering emotional access, her way of whispering beneath the surface, "If you feel this energy too, make a move." But Adrian, relying on literal communication instead of emotional intuition, continued to miss the opportunity. Unaware that women rarely confess desire directly, choosing instead to drop signs that intelligent men learn to decode, and thus, their connection grew in silence, slow, warm, electric, and waiting for the moment one of them finally understood what the other was trying to say without saying it. As their interactions grew deeper, Liana's coded signals increased in intensity and consistency, because women escalate interest in gradual emotional steps, never all at once. And she began testing Adrian's confidence in more intentional ways, inviting him to walk with her after class, slowing her pace so they could walk shoulder to shoulder, brushing her hand against his arm just long enough to see if he would reciprocate, and asking questions that hinted at her emotional vulnerability, such as, "Do you ever feel like some people understand you more than others, or do you believe two people can connect without trying?" And while these questions sounded philosophical to him, they were in fact emotional invitations, gentle probes to see if he felt the same undercurrent of chemistry she did. She would share personal stories not to gain sympathy but to show trust, opening small pieces of her heart with each meeting, and every time she told him, "I feel safe with you," she was giving him one of the strongest female codes, a psychological key meaning, "I'm letting you in," lead the connection towards something deeper. Yet Adrian still took these as friendly compliments. Meanwhile, Liana began observing his reactions carefully, reading his energy, his timing, his silence, evaluating whether he would ever recognize the emotional doorway she had been opening again and again. And the more he hesitated, the more she wondered if she should keep trying or pull back. Because for women, repeated vulnerability without reciprocation slowly turns into emotional doubt. Still, she continued, dropping small signs: a longer hug, soft eye contact during laughter, subtle compliments about his presence, and each moment carried the same unspoken message: "This is your chance. Do you feel me the way I feel you?" The emotional tension reached a silent peak the night Liana invited Adrian to a small lake near campus, a place she rarely shared with anyone. And she chose it because women create intimacy not through words, but through environments that trigger emotion. And as they sat under the fading evening light, she positioned herself close enough that their shoulders touched, letting the warmth pass between them like a silent message, and then she said the phrase again, softly and intentionally, "I don't know why, but being with you feels easy." And this time the meaning was unmistakable. Her voice trembled slightly, her breathing softened, and she looked at him with eyes that spoke louder than anything she had ever said aloud. This was her moment of complete vulnerability, her final emotional signal, the point where a woman hopes the man understands without being told. But Adrian, still trapped inside his logical world, still needing verbal confirmation, still afraid of misinterpreting the moment, hesitated again. And that hesitation felt to Liana like rejection. Not because he meant it, but because when a woman opens herself emotionally and the man doesn't respond, she instantly feels exposed, unsafe, and misunderstood, so she pulled back slowly, pretending to look at the lake, hiding the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Adrian went home that night carrying the strange weight of a missed opportunity he didn't fully understand. And she went home wondering if she had imagined all the chemistry, the energy, the silent conversations with his eyes, both of them drifted into a long, emotionally confusing space where nothing was said but everything was felt. And their unspoken connection became a quiet ache neither knew how to resolve. Have you ever replayed conversations in your head, wondering if you missed something? For Adrian, the days after meeting Liana felt oddly quiet. It was in that silence that he started to piece everything together. Every look, every phrase, every moment her presence felt like a magnetic pull. He had been waiting for a clear, explicit sign, a direct declaration. But he was looking for the wrong thing entirely. He realized women often communicate desire not with loud words, but with quiet, emotional vulnerability. Liana kept saying something he dismissed as a simple compliment. "I feel safe with you," but it wasn't just a nice thing to say. It was a coded message, a psychological invitation. It was her way of saying, "I want you to lead. I trust you enough to let you." Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The long, unbroken eye contact that felt like it stretched for minutes. The soft, lingering touches on his arm that he thought were just friendly gestures. The late-night talks where she shared secrets she'd never told anyone else. She was creating these small, quiet spaces where intimacy could grow naturally without pressure. She was handing him the key, and he hadn't even realized he was holding it. A wave of regret washed over him, but it was quickly followed by a surge of determination. He finally understood the language she was speaking. Meanwhile, Liana was feeling the sting of what she perceived as rejection. She had opened her heart, made herself vulnerable, and had gotten nothing in return. It wasn't that her interest faded. It was a defense mechanism. When a woman lays her feelings bare and feels unreciprocated, she often withdraws to protect herself from getting hurt further. It's an act of self-preservation, so she pulled back. Her energy shifted. Her texts became shorter, her replies polite instead of warm and playful. The vibrant connection they shared began to feel formal, distant. She was building a wall, brick by brick, not to push him away forever, but to shield her own heart. Adrian noticed the change immediately. The warmth was gone, replaced by a polite coolness that felt 1,000 miles away. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his gut, that this was his final chance. If he didn't act now, if he let this moment slip away, he would lose something incredibly rare and beautiful. He had to show her he finally understood. He couldn't just tell her, he had to prove it. So, he invited her back to the lake. The same place where they first felt that spark. But this time, it wasn't a casual hangout. This time, it was intentional. When Liana arrived, you could see the caution in her eyes. Her posture was guarded, her smile hesitant. She was prepared for another friendly, meaningless chat, ready to keep her emotional walls firmly in place. But Adrian didn't wait for another sign or a perfect moment. He didn't hesitate. He closed the distance between them, moving with a calm, quiet confidence she had been secretly hoping to see all along. This wasn't the hesitant, unsure Adrian she had been talking to. This was a man who knew what he wanted. For the very first time, he reached out and took her hand. It wasn't an accidental brush or a friendly pat. It was deliberate, purposeful. He held her gaze, mirroring the same emotional clarity she had been showing him for weeks. For a split second, Liana froze. It wasn't a freeze of fear or uncertainty. It was a freeze of pure, unadulterated relief, the feeling of finally being seen, finally being understood. Women often respond instantly and powerfully when a man deciphers their emotional language. It's like a switch flips, and all the walls she built come crumbling down. As they stood there by the water, hand in hand, the silence was no longer awkward or quiet. It was filled with everything that had been left unsaid. Adrian looked at her, his expression serious but gentle, and said softly, "I didn't recognize it before, but I understand now." Those few words were the key. They unlocked the deep emotional connection she had been offering him all along. It wasn't a grand, poetic confession. It was simple, honest, and powerful. It was an acknowledgement that he was finally ready to meet her on her level, in the language of the heart. He accepted the invitation she had been extending for weeks. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more. From that moment on, their entire dynamic transformed, because when a woman sees that a man finally understands her emotional signals, she shifts from uncertainty to openness. From guardedness to softness, and Leanna's body language changed instantly. Her shoulders relaxed. Her eyes brightened, and her breathing steadied as she stepped closer, finally letting him feel the warmth she had been holding back for so long. And she repeated the phrase one last time, but now with full certainty. "I feel safe with you." And this time Adrian didn't freeze, he gently held her face, closing the emotional gap that had kept them apart. And she leaned in with the kind of relief only a woman who has been waiting for a man's emotional understanding can feel. And as their connection deepened, everything that once felt confusing became effortless. And Adrian finally realized that women communicate desire through coded phrases, through emotional cues, through subtle openings that men who listen with their hearts, not just their ears, can learn to decode. And their story didn't become magical because of a grand gesture, but because he finally recognized the signals she had been giving him all along. The lingering compliments, the emotional openness, the comfortable silences, the gentle touches, and especially that one powerful coded phrase, "I feel safe with you," the phrase women use when they rate quietly, telling a man to make a move, to lead, to step into the connection with confidence. And from that moment forward, Adrian understood a truth that changed his entire life. Women rarely say "make a move" directly, because their real language is emotional, subtle, intuitive. And once a man learns to decode it, he never again misses the moment when a woman is silently inviting him into her heart.